a learning session here on building your own custom function. So this function that we're going to build is going to be called display message. It's going to display a custom message box on a web page and act as a replacement for the built-in alert, which is kind of ugly. So we might have seen alerts before, but if not, take a look at what this does in the browser. Type this in. This is what we get. Not very pretty. So it says the website says this. This is the message. We have a way to close it. So we want to stylize this a little bit better and create a nicer look and feel. So let's talk about alert. So alert is a function. It takes one argument, which is what you want to put in the alert. And we can vary that string, so it can be numbers, it can be text, it can be an array. It is limited. We can just pretty much alter the message. We can't vary anything else like color, font, icons, what the button looks like. So what we're going to do is build our own version. So to get started, we will download the function start HTML file, which I have over here. So this has some styling. This has a button, which we're going to activate to click and see the alert, and then our script tags. So first thing we're going to do is name our function that we're going to work with. So it's going to be function display message like this. So the function keyword means we're defining a function, and then the words after that with the parentheses mean that we are giving it a name. So this is a named function. And then everything inside the curly braces is going to be a group of statements or a program that runs every time we call or invoke this function. So as part of this practice, a lot of this code is written for you so you can see it work and experiment with it. So I'll take this block here and put this inside the curly braces of our function, and then we'll take a look at what is happening here. So we'll walk through first line of code. We've seen this before, but it's good to review. This is using the DOM API, so that's the document object model. That's where we're using document here. And then all of these dot notated words with parentheses, these are different functions that are built in to the DOM API. So the first one is a query selector. So it's selecting something you could select with CSS called HTML. So it's selecting the whole document, saving it as a variable. Then it's creating a new element called panel. It's going to create a div for the panel. Next thing it does is it reuses panel. So it says, now that I have this element that's a div, I want to set some attributes on it. It's going to get two attributes. One that's called class, so we should see a class equals eventually, and then one that says MSG box, so message box. So next thing we end up doing is another DOM function. So we're going to reuse the HTML that we selected. We're going to append a child called panel. Panel happens to be this div that we just defined. So we've written HTML using JavaScript here. So we have to do this append, otherwise the code we've written doesn't actually show up on the page. Next two sections use create element and append again. So we're creating a new paragraph element called message, and then we're putting some text in that. So we're going to reuse message constant. Text content is what we're targeting with the dot text content. We're setting this value, so that's the text inside the p tag, to this is a message box. Then we append it to panel. So now we have an empty div here with some attributes on it, and then we just put text inside of it. Next thing we're doing is adding a button or an X, so a way to close this panel. So we do this first by creating a new element, assigning it to a variable called closeBTN for button, change its text content to be that of an X, and then we append the child called closeButton back up here to the panel div. So now we've added a message there, and now we've added a little X button to close. So next thing we're going to do is add an event listener or event handler, so that when we click said X button, the close button, that we remove the panel from its parent node. Meaning, we're going to take this whole div and remove it from its parent, which happens to be, in this case, the HTML document. So we do this by saying close button, which is this element, on click. So if I click on close button and run this anonymous function that says target the panel, then its parent node, and remove the child called panel from the page. So this is all the heavy lifting. This is all the program that we're running. Next thing we need to do is actually invoke the function or call it. So we want to include just a display message at the end. So we want to make sure that we're placing this at the right spot. So it says add this below our function. So we want to make sure we're not putting it inside. Save that. And so let's take a look in the browser, see what happens here. Okay, so I see display message box, close it. Yeah, not working. So what is the matter here? Let's take a look. So what if we just run display message? Okay, it runs from the console just fine, but it doesn't run when we push the button. So button, display message. We haven't actually addressed any of that yet, so that would make sense. So it says open the browser, see your example, go to the console, type in our display message. So we can open and close it manually using console. So we want the message now to appear when we click on the button. So as you can imagine, we're no longer going to write display message for a minute. We will select the button and store it in a constant. I'm just going to comment this out for a minute. And we will add over here constant btn. Then we're going to say document select, or document query selector. And we want the actual button tag, which is here. So we're targeting that so we can use it on the next line. And we're going to say when that button is clicked, so btn.onClick equals display message. So now we're having it click, running this function, but no longer in the console. So if we refresh, close, open, close, open, close. Works great. So one thing you might notice is we're not adding the parentheses at the end of our button on click. So this is because we don't want to run the function right away. We only want it to run after it's been clicked. So if we do add it, let's see what happens here. Look, refresh. It never goes away because it's running it continuously every time we click. So this is something good to know here. So those parentheses are sometimes called function invocation operators. So remember that. So we only add those when we want to run the function right away in the current scope. In this case, we don't want to run it right away. We want to wait for the button press. So next thing we're going to look at is improving this function with some parameters. So we want somebody to be able to put in a custom message. So we want to update our display message, add those parameter placeholders, message text, and message type. Save that. And now when we call our function, we need to append those within our button click. So in our button on click, we're going to change this up a little bit. We're going to run an anonymous function. And we're going to use our two parameters now. So we're going to say that. Actually, it looks like I skipped a couple steps here. So we need to change the message box, which is that. So I'm going to just copy and paste that revealed one there as a reference. So we want to actually have the message contents be the message text value. And then, as you can imagine, button on click, that's changed. Let's take a look. So now we get the different message just fine. So if we want to specify these parameters, so the message text and the message type, we can't call these directly. So we have to put these in this anonymous function so that it doesn't get run immediately. Now it's only called anytime we push the button. And now we could also vary the message displayed in the box. So the last part of what we're going to do is stylize this pop-up, this message. So looks like we have a few icons to download with the warning and chat icons. So we'll just save as. I'm going to put these into my site project. Warning. Save as. There. Chat. So first thing we will do in the CSS, we need to change the size on the message box to accommodate our new icons here. So we'll change the width from 200 to 252. And then we want to add these 3 lines to message box paragraph. And now we need some code for the display message. So this is our display message function, and we need to be able to handle displaying an icon. So I'm going to add this block just above the closing curly brace of our function, so right here. And what this is going to do is swap out icons based on the message type. So is it a warning or is it a chat? So take all this, let's get in here. So it's going to say message type is exactly warning, and we need to do all this stuff. So we're going to take message, which, if you guys recall where that is, it's right here. So it's inside the paragraph. We're going to style it with a background image of icons / warning. Actually, I'm just going to change this so it's not icons since I put these in the same folder. And so it changes the background image, background color, if the message is a warning. Otherwise, if it's a chat, use the chat background image and an aqua color. And then in any other case, it's going to just move the padding left 20 pixels. So it's basically going to leave a blank spot if there's no other message type. So the last thing we'll do to test is going to change this message, and we'll test a couple of these. So now if I preview, you should see that last message. So it says, "Hi Brian, Brian, hi there, how are you today?" And it's demarcated as a chat. However, I see the inbox is almost full warning behind it. So let's comment that out. There's our chat. And let's try that. So inbox is full. Looks like maybe our images aren't really images. Yeah, they're HTML documents. So let's go back up here and download those pages. I should say download the actual images. And there's our one. So one thing to note or consider when we look at this custom stuff here, we're no longer using the built-in alert function. So we're just making our own happen on the page in HTML. There's no external pop-up or anything that we're having to create or deal with here. So that wraps up writing your own custom function.